Pokemon has been having a dry spell of spin-offs lately. Yes, I know of the Detective Pikachu sequel before you inevitably comment. It seems that in more recent years, the Pokemon Company has been releasing far less spin-offs than they used to in favor of mobile games. Sure, we'll still get a few occasionally, like new Pokemon Snap and the previously mentioned Detective Pikachu sequel, but it's clear the focus on side games not for the mainline stuff has shifted. Frankly, that makes me kinda sad. Yeah, I love me some mainline Pokemon action, but I have such intense nostalgia for stuff like Mystery Dungeon, Poke Park, and even some of their more out there stuff like Pokemon Channel. Sure, Mystery Dungeon got something a few years ago, but that was just a remake of the first game, not a fully new one, and that got me thinking about the types of spin-offs similar level franchises have, maybe even from the same company. Yes, Pokemon is the perfect franchise to get a Mario Party-like game. They got the perfect world, character variety, and minigame potential. Today I'm going to be suggesting a few possible ideas for a hypothetical Pokemon party game. Nintendo, please don't take this and Pokemon Dash it. The potential playable characters may seem tricky at first, with 1,000 of the little buggers out there. So to make things simple, we'll keep it limited to the starters. After all, Mystery Dungeon kinda sorta does that. Pikachu and Eevee are obvious choices. Pikachu being the mascot, and Eevee sort of becoming a secondary mascot in the last few years, seemingly trying to target girls with how many of the female companions in the anime have one. On a side note, remember when Jigglypuff was the mon with that role? As for the other starters, I could see either all of them, or just the most popular or iconic ones. This may involve having to use their more popular evolutions in some cases, like with Charizard or Greninja. The complication I could see with this is some too big for Pokemon party sort of deal though. Then again, Smash Bros made a playable Charizard work, so who knows. I think if we were going by the safe options, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charizard for that sweet Kanto pandering, and Mudkip, Piplup, Greninja, Rowlet, Cinderace, Sprigatito, and Fuecoco for what seems more popular. Another more streamlined idea would just be to have the playable characters be your own customizable trainer. Character customization has become a lot more commonplace in games in the last few years. Detailed character customization at that. So having this for a multiplayer party game with not as easy to set playable characters feels natural. Maybe in this scenario, you use the trainer to move through the board while the Pokemon play the minigames. Allows for more variety. So remember the Pokemon Master Trainer board game? It was a Pokemon board game released during the height of Pokemania. It was an interesting yet super complicated game where you raced your opponents through the gyms and eventually the Elite Four. The actual board was just a map of Kanto. Well, what if we took that same concept, but for every region? Okay, not the complicated game part, just the region map. Each board can represent each region, which would lead to a lot of variety. You'd get the water and volcano sites of Hoenn, the mountains of Sinnoh, the islands of Alola, a lot of cool sites. An alternative idea would be if each board was modeled after a legendary. Now, there's a lot of legendaries, so there would have to be some picking and choosing, so a better idea I thought of would just be if they are based on the evolutions instead. They're diverse enough in types to lead to a nice variety of boards, from water to forest to horror with Umbreon. Heck, Sylveon's a fairy type, so the sky's the limit there. Mario Party games also tend to have a Bowser-themed board. That's a no-brainer. Make the equivalent Team Rocket HQ. It has that sinister vibe, and it could lead to a lot of crazy hazards with the grunts. Bowser himself would be Giovanni, obviously, or to fit with the anime, Jesse, James, and Meowth. Their goofy personalities would honestly make it a more memorable board. Plus, having 3 of them could lead to more variety in potential board events. Heck, their wacky shenanigans could lead to potentially fun minigames, but we'll get to the minigames in a bit. Now at this point, you may be wondering, what's the star equivalent? To that random hypothetical commentator, I must ask you, what is one of the main purposes of the mainline games? Battling gyms? Battling leagues? Simping Sonya? No, it's gotta fucking catch 'em all! So you're literally catching a Pokemon for your star. They'll be spread across the board and you gotta catch 'em when you reach 'em. Most Pokemon at the end win. Bonus idea, in the event of someone tying the number of Pokemon to someone else, they do a one-on-one sudden death fight. Would help incorporate battle elements into this. Let me start out with the obvious. Just port the minigames from Stadium 1 and 2 earlier. They were basically Mario Party minigames with a poke-coated paint anyway. Just port them over and pretty up the graphics. But, Mario Party has way more minigames than 21, so we'll need more. I would also like to bring up the attractions in the 2 Poke Park games. Those games are underrated in general, but they have these fun little attractions in each area, which sort of have a Mario Party style. They'd have to be reworked a bit. If I remember correctly, the focus on a lot of them would just be on one character, but I imagine that wouldn't be too hard. As for others, there are over 100 Pokemon now. Sky's the limit with which ones you can make a fun minigame out of. Maybe an Aura Sphere knockout game with Lucario, or a treasure hunt game with Klefki, or a Tinkaton game where you gotta knock out as many Corviknight as possible. Okay, half joking with that one, but seriously, put that in. Going back to the Team Rocket board idea, imagine the potential of Team Rocket minigames, especially if they were focused on Jessie and James. Each of the trio could provide a fun variety of minigames. Maybe a Jessie one could focus on contests, James on bottle cap collecting, Meowth on, simping cat Pokemon? IDK, that's what he does in the majority of his episodes. I'm not sure if having a story mode is too necessary, but Mario Party did start upping in its story mode around the GameCube era, so we might as well. I imagine the story mode would factor into the Team Rocket board in some way, with it being an unlockable board that you could probably unlock after playing all the main boards. I'd say the best way to do this would be if a human player wins on each board. Yeah, it would make it a bit too easy if you, say, play with other people, but the story in Mario Party is usually secondary to the chaotic party fun anyway. As for what the story is, maybe something involving Team Rocket taking over the world and then having to play Poke Party to save each region. Maybe factor in catching a bunch of Pokemon to beat Team Rocket executives that are running each board, with the winner getting the honor of doing it. With the final minigame showdown against Giovanni on the final board. Yeah, it's pretty off the wall, but this would be inspired by the same franchise who had a story about the Sun and Moon fighting. Alternative would be making it a bit more simplistic with just the Pokemon fighting over who's the best, like in the first game, if you were to go with the scenario of the Pokemon being playable. So those are just a few of my ideas for a Pokemon Mario Party. Feel free to bring up any ideas you have in the comments. So until next time, hypothetically ruin friendships with this.